For all its inconveniences, Lang was satisfied with life in the high-rise, ready to move forward and explore life. How exactly? He had not yet decided.
I'm so sorry.
I'll survive.
I thought you were empty.
I just moved in.
You're an excellent specimen. Why don't you come up later and have a drink?
You don't know how things work around here, do you?
I'm a fast learner.
And that was Highrise, directed by Ben Wheatley, starring Tom Hiddleston, Jeremy Irons, and Sienna Miller. Hello everyone, welcome back. The Highrise is this verticality of design. We in the past learned to live, and then of course to work as well. But recently we start seeing that the verticality of the design has made a major comeback after we've seen in the past 50 years how cities started to spread horizontally rather than vertically. And the need to revalue land and the current price and the current divisions of downtown space and uptown space, it has led to the evaluation of the rethinking of the vertical spaces. Whereas when cities started to take advantage of the availability of land outside the city cores and started developing what is suburbia today, and with the current market house prices that is affecting North America, what has affected North America, started 10 years ago in the US, and then Canada followed suit, and in Canada prices, especially in the big cities like Toronto, Vancouver, have been gone steadily up, especially for properties that are outside the city in the suburb, or even for the uptown residents, where you can find homes that are 2-3 bedrooms, maybe bungalows. They start with a price of $500,000 Canadian dollars, of course, and now listing you up to $1 million. So, and this led for a major rethinking from buyers to say, is it truly worth to buy this huge house outside that has a significant cost in property taxes, in maintenance, and fees, and the bill for the electricity, for the utilities? Many people said, no, it's not worth anymore. So they decided to push towards going back to live downtown. And we can now find affordable prices compared to other properties where you can buy 2-3 bedrooms for the same price that a smaller house will list in the suburb. So if you do find some listings that are 300,000, 400,000 in the downtown, significantly people are moving in because they know that they won't need a car. They probably live closer to where they work. So there is now the rethinking that it's probably not worth to commute 2 hours a day, 2 or 3 hours a day from downtown for the city cores all the way to the suburb where the majority of people live in big cities in North America. And many people start thinking that it's not worth anymore to spend so much and to perpetrate this sort of like North American dream of everybody must have the suburb house because they want to fit it into the suburb life. And this also leads to the rethinking of how should we approach the design, the urban design and the architecture for the next 20, 30 or even 50 years. We have to make long-term investments. And going back to where we were at the beginning with the concept of the high-rise, truly inspired by what it was the book by J.G. Ballard titled The Highrise. It's a fantastic science fiction book that speaks about the life of this doctor that after the divorce started living to high-rises, like a very modern, full automated high-rise with all the amenities built outside the city, the downtown. And the book has a very, very, very nice narrative because it describes pretty much how society, every single person inside the story has its pros and cons, bring a bit to the table, takes everything from the table. And Highrise, this book written in 1975, was aiming at illustrating what was at the time the decay of the British economy, especially in that decade. And the novel highlights the brutalist design that is very modern building is described, and the buildings always was going through constant power shortages, power failure, technical issues, and people started rioting and started to behave just like human beings when technology basically fails. Now, this book, written in 1975 in England, highlighted one or two of the major issues that were affecting the first 5 years of the Western world, which was the oil crisis, the embargo over the Saudi, and they brought to the knees the United States, but also many of such problems were felt throughout Europe, and especially in England, because between 1973 and 75, England was going through a second bank crisis, and of course, all these factors combined were the great inspiration for Ballard to write this book, The Highrise. During the 70s, these new ideas on urban design, of course, started taking place. And the concept of having people start living vertically rather than horizontally has been debated even since probably the late 19th century, where the very first high-rise skyscraper started to appear in cities like big cities like New York or London. What can we understand from it? That back in the days, 100 or so years ago, everybody pretty much would concentrate in the cities because that's where most of the jobs were, most of the opportunities that were everybody. The idea of the suburbs didn't even exist. After World War II, we start seeing that new opportunities develop outside the cities, and people start spreading outward from the city cores. Now we're back to square one, I guess we can call it that way. We're back to going to the city core, where developers have started to build high rises, skyscrapers. For example, here in Toronto, we start seeing, like, in the last 10 years or so, within 15 years, a huge boom in high rises, and many of them are actually quite affordable compared to the housing markets that uptown or the suburbs offers. But beyond the classic building of the high-rise, we start stacking people, or we start stacking hundreds and hundreds of people in pretty much in the same portion of the city block. Beyond this, there's also the philosophy of living vertical. In the end of the 1960s, Italian architect Paolo Soleri started to approach and rethink why people ought to live in more concentrated places, but not by giving up privacy or giving up private spaces. It was more about, let's stop wasting a space that we're never going to use, or we actually use so little that virtually makes no sense to have. So, beginning of the 70s, Paolo Soleri started working, between the 60s, the end of the 60s and beginning of the 70s in Arizona. And especially with this project called Arcosanti, and then he eventually created the Cosanti Foundation, which is, we can call it a village located 110 kilometers north of Phoenix. And it hosts 5,000 people, and there's no space for cars. Everybody walks, everybody commutes. There are like shops inside. People craft their own tools, their pottery classes. The way the architecture is shaped, it's inspired by nature. And it also has many positive aspects that we lost sight. And this is what Paolo Soleri wanted to highlight, was the fact that we don't need to live so spread out that we constantly need cars and fossil fuel to move around, even to reach the slightest and closest destination. What we actually need is to understand to maximize and exploit all the space that we have, so we don't have to invest a huge amount of resources to maintain spaces and amenities that we're never going to use, or we use way little to make it worthwhile. The concept, the idea, the philosophy of the high-rise has a whole society that represents itself inside this vertical building. So Ballard in his book in 1975 was depicting how society truly behaves in cities, but shrunk to a single building. And we have people behaving differently, power outages, technical difficulties, riots. And then the whole thing started going downhill. And I highly suggest this book. You can find it pretty much everywhere, and in bookshops or online. It's not of a long book, like a couple of hundred pages, worth the reading. And it really makes you think that what is that if we start truly vertically, and we push towards the concept of the archaeology. Archaeology is this architectural term founded by Paulo Soleri, which is a mix between archaeology, architecture, more than that, and the ecology. So it's to preserve space throughout architecture and put together people and environment. And you can see throughout his Paulo Soleri's project that he developed very, very large buildings that are some sort of like reminiscence of like Egyptians or Aztec pyramids, where it's a city in itself, basically. So it could be like this huge structure, like a huge hollow skyscraper that has its own park, its own shops, its own amenities, located close to the downtown of a city, or could be even located in the middle of the desert. And that sort of like reminds me how Utopia starts. For example, George Lucas' 1970 movie THX 1138 describes in a very bleak future people being doomed by robots to live underground. This sort of like huge underground city and forbidden to go outside in fear of pure death, because I think of a post-apocalyptic scenario or something like that. Then again, the 1970s, the end of 60s, 1970 brought many of this scenario up into the mainstream for debate, because the political scenario back then was sparking up many conversation on whether where were we going, and what kind of attitude do we need to take the year to come if we start facing constant energy crisis that we had during the 1971-72 oil embargo, and the lack of oil, the lack of raw materials that sparked many people to change, to switch political sides, and has brought people to rethink on how we have to move forward. But then again, we never sort of like truly went along to understand what that decade really meant from the political, social to the design architectural point of view. We forgot in the 80s and 90s that the problem of the ecology, the environment, was supposed to be always on top of our mind, on top of our list. We didn't, and we let those 20 years slide by, forgetting about those political turmoils in the 70s, to live in a sort of like denial, and we went to being very lazy. And suddenly we entered the 2000s with the internet that started sort of like rehashing everything was being said 30, 40 years earlier than that. That the environment is a risk, the planet is warming up, so we have to approach new way of living. And we can start from the urban design, like we mentioned in previous episodes, and the new architecture, a more progressive approach. Now, can we live in a vertical environment? Can we live this sort of like huge, hollow structures that will be our cities? Is the human condition, the human mind ready for that? Probably yes, but we have to consider that social behaviors will play a very important role, which means that somebody or an entire generation born into that environment that think that the world is that whole structure will sort of like struggle to go outside. So we have potential social behavior issues here, psychological problem that will come to play. Now, let's think also, do we really need to build these huge structures? Do we really need to consider building humongous pyramids and basically limit ourselves into think them as like city-states, as nation? That is up to debate. There are some pros and some cons with that. The pros will be that we'll stop the waste of space. The implementation of green energy will be the top priorities for this type of structures. But then again, at the same time, the psychological problem, it has to be a top priority, because if people start suddenly realizing that it becomes a claustrophobic environment, living this sort of like arc will be impossible for the one generation after the other one. And once people start flocking away, basically you will have this huge waste of material, the abandoned structure that we can't suddenly say, okay, let's undo everything, let's Control Z, let's basically dismantle the whole thing. And it's also a large impact on the landmark. Once you start having these huge structures that become sort of like city-states, we have to understand what is the environmental impact. Yes, they could be eco-friendly, but the problem though is the amount of material that they require to build. What we need to do is sort of to understand that the urban space is not infinite, but it's the opposite. It's a very well stretch of land that we have to maximize. So we can't allow ourselves to continue to waste resources just to maintain or to build things that we're never going to experience. And we mentioned before this with the urban space and the policy and the psychology of public space, how people perceive the public space in North America especially. So we have, if you go out from your homes, if you go out, you see plenty of public spaces that have been built the wrong way, where nobody visits them because there is no purpose for people to be in certain part of the cities. Either you go there and you walk your dog, you're there with your children playing at the park, but that's pretty much about it. Anything else is basically it's a phone call away from the police to have people being removed from the area, because we think that if kids stay in the park after like 8 p.m, it's a call for the cops to show up or something like that. Now, do we really need to build high rises? Probably yes, but in moderate proportion. I think that by implementing like new greener technology solution to build better high rises, we can stop, or we can at least sort of like reduce the spreading of the suburb the way it's been going on for the past 30 to 40 years. And once you do build something that is just probably 10 to 20 stories high, and it becomes fully integrated to be not a city-state, but a good living condition where you're not bound either to stay close into your apartment or to work or to seek some sort of like open space. But I do believe that rethinking the high-rise or the condominium, the buildings, by implementing certain aspects, more green space inside, better and larger views through larger windows, we will have truly positive impact. And it will sort of also push for people to rethink the way we live. So again, we're not supposed to perpetrate the mantra that the suburb, the driving culture is the only way once we basically make up a family, start having 1 or 2 kids. No, that is sort of the pamphlet that we've been reading for far too long. We've been indoctrinated with that. There are plenty of viable solutions. Take the time to go outside to downtown, walk around and see how many people are happy, how many people enjoy strolling by, and how many people enjoy truly just going out for coffee, going down from the road that they used to walk. They go for the coffee, they go something to eat, and they don't have to drive 20, 30 miles away to go back to their suburb community or their housing parts. Then again, it's about social interaction, because we ought to understand that the isolation that bad architecture and bad design has created in the last 30 years, it's damaging our society. The element of the high-rise has the potential benefit to bring people in a less segregated way, because architecture and design, the way we apply them, have spawned much more segregation than we had in the past years by building cities and cutting through highways or collectors or natural elements to divide different neighborhoods. Now, creating a high-rise complex that can truly have the potential to truly enjoy the fact that we can conceive new and better living spaces by not pretending we're selling diamonds to people. Because this is what sometimes I do feel when I do read promotion comes to the mail or see ads or billboards on the road. The exclusive living of this condo, and the exclusive this, the exclusive that, and it looks like we're selling jewels to people, like diamonds, to make this investment becomes a burden. So you can isolate yourself from the rest, because that's the psychology behind it. It's truly that they're selling you this sort of like mantra where go there, don't worry about the environment, don't worry about anything, just enjoy your view, which is the view of other buildings. There are plenty of solutions than isolating yourself into your tower. And the more you try to isolate into your ivory tower, the more you forget what it means to live among other people, among human beings. cities are to stop being passive, which means that we are to integrate people into taking back cities. The high-rise in itself, as we see it now, it's a bit controversial. High-rise, we see high-rise downtown, banks, buildings, offices, space offices, and we also see outside throughout between one suburb division and one industrial commercial area, we start seeing office park isolated like that. I don't know what even thought about that. Obviously, the warehouses are like high rises where office space is available for rent, where many companies decide so they'll pay fewer taxes, surrounded by this pretentious green area to make them feel comfortable. But in the end, it's another shot in the dark that, in my opinion, failed. People going there, they commute from their home, they commute to the office part, to their office space. Then what do? They need to still take the car if they want to go out to have something different from the vending machine at their office. And if they're lucky, they have a cafeteria. However, the office park, the sort of like pretentious looking like green solution, it's not green at all. And the future of this building, I don't think it's so bright. This building, in the next 50 to 100 years, they probably lose their value. They're probably the fashion of going to work or for the industry to build and to rent space in office parks will probably shift into another direction. Already in the past 20 years, people started working at home or work in different environments. Many new high-tech companies or recent companies have been up, starting using or building, they renovated them, they started to apply different philosophies. So still work downtown. We reshape things that were abandoned. We still renovate. The cities do help with tax breaks or other financial aid. It helps sort of defeat the narrative that you can only find office space in a glass tower. Maybe it will still continue with this, but in my opinion, or in my knowledge, I do think that it won't be feasible anymore. The current financial situation that we are in 2016 and the current storm that we've been through from 2007 all the way down will be 8 years of this long oblivion of financial situation that the globe is going through. Doesn't allow companies to make the same amount of money like they did before. The rule of engagement have changed, and so have their investments. So when countries go through crisis, the first thing that they cut is all those programs and investment that we think they're not important, which are environmental programs, investment in better technologies, investments to reshape neighborhoods and to aid people in need of better social housing conditions and food programs and education programs. So the social, environmental, and cultural aspect, it's the very first that gets into trouble because it's the one direction that could throw it under the bus in the name of their nation, name of their economy. So we have to be careful and think that the investment for the future won't be as healthy as we've seen in the past 30 years. Then again, the rule of engagement have changed. We have to think that we have to invest small amounts of capital, crowdfunding even that, which is great, and start reshaping things that are already existing. Let's stop building new things. Let's stop about wasting time and space. Let's rebuild better communities vertically, not too high. Let's start embellish what we already have. And the concept of high-rise won't be as hostile as we see nowadays. So we have to think that the aesthetic of the outside also plays an important role. For example, if we take a look at the city of Milan in Italy, we have a vertical forest that was built downtown along with a series of other set of skyscrapers. It's called the vertical forest. In Italian, it's called Bosco Verticale. So which basically is a set of apartments built with all the pods and all the space to place plants and trees and bushes, and it truly looks amazing. And you start seeing this very progressive, very advanced design in Milan, and especially in Italy, where usually architectures, it's very traditional. Design is very traditional in terms of urban settings. So this is a very, very positive point for the city of Milan and in Italy. And the structures won awards for its daring to build new urban designs. So this type of architecture is always something that we can look up into for inspiration. Then, of course, it's not only that we have to build pretty buildings, we have to build functional building. So, and also keep in mind that there's a huge price tag on that. So municipalities, they have to understand that they're not there only to make profits. They also have to push the agenda that giving sustainable housing, providing a smart solution for people to buy new homes, they must always consider people as well. We can't continue to perpetrate the fact that, oh well, don't worry, people won't be bothered. Let's forget about them. Let's prioritize revenues. Okay, that's what we're looking for. No, this has to stop. So we have to rethink that. The living quarters, the living solutions for the future are, yes, vertical, because that's how you maximize your investments. Once you start slowing the process of the suburban sprawl, you start seeing how municipality will start saving money, because that's where municipalities are having a problem with the budget in the last 20 or so years. So I'm sure that if you can get a hold of some data for their budget, they do a bit of reshuffling to hide the dirt under the rug, but eventually the verticality of cities, even the suburb, will help reduce deficits. So it's the right, in my opinion, it's the right approach on how we should live in the next decades to come.